listen up. Listen up. I'll tell you what, man. These games are hard to win, and that's the truth. But I'll tell you what, we talked about it at the start of the week, playing with relentless effort, right? And relentless focus. And when we needed it in the fourth quarter, how about that defense? They only had 239 total yards. Great job, team. Great job, team. Hey, winning on the road ain't ever easy, right? But we do it together. We do it together, man. How we prepare during the week to find ways to win these games, man, because when it gets into November, we're in October, November, December football, man, we're going to look back and be like, remember that Tennessee game? Remember when it came down and we freaking all pulled together and found a way? And we found a way, man. Hell of a team win. Hell of a team win. Let's clap it up.
Yes, sir, boy. Hey, that's how we rally together. That's how we fight through some together as a team, bro. Every single week, the best version of each other, every single week. And guess what? That started on Wednesday, bro. We made that decision on Wednesday. Let's keep that going, bro. We back at home. Let's get that. Bring it in, man. Bring it in, man. Let's go. Colts on 3. 1, 2, 3. Go!
You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Matt Adams with a game recap for the Week 6 matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. And the Colts come off on the winning side this time. They eke out the win, 20-17, divisional opponent. Defense played a little bit better this week, although really it was also against an offense that has been limited. But you know what? A win is a win. After an 0-2 start, the Colts have now won 3 out of 4. They've evened their record at 3-3. Next couple of games coming up. You've got Miami at home next week, and then it's on the road against the Texans for another AFC South road game, because they're in a stretch where 3 of their 4 games are road games against AFC South opponents. All right, so Joe Flacco got the start this week, and it was kind of a surprise to most everyone because it sounded like all indications were that Anthony Richardson, a little banged up, but he was going to play, was feeling better, and was going to be back in, and he was in practice this week, and it didn't sound like he had many limitations. But at the end of the day, the Colts in a road game here decided that perhaps it would be best to start Joe Flacco instead of Richardson, let Richardson have another week to heal. And it's an interesting decision. So Richardson, if Flacco got hurt and Sam Ehlinger got hurt and you needed to use Richardson in the game, he was available as the emergency quarterback this week. Just something that took a lot of people, myself included, by surprise, and just kind of found that out shortly before the game, because it certainly seemed like Anthony Richardson was going to be on the road to playing this week. Michael Pittman Jr. suffering from a back injury. There were some reports this week that said that it was at least bothering him enough that it would put him on the injured reserve. He ended up playing this week. And, you sort of wonder why, like with Richardson, why do you keep him out, but why do you play Pittman? And part of it comes down to the nature of the position. While I looked at snap counts and Michael Pittman played a good number of the Colts snaps, like 80% of them, you can still kind of manage your receivers on a little bit of a pitch count as far as, whether they're running routes, whether they're blocking. Some personal groupings, you don't even have him out on the field, which was the case with Pittman a few times. Whereas when you're the quarterback, you're in every single play, whether you're taking the snap to hand it off, whether you're taking the ball to run it, whether you're taking the ball to throw it. It puts you at risk every single play that you may not necessarily face as wide receiver. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. It does seem a little counterintuitive, though, to play the one guy who's injured and clearly dealing with something, but then to sit the other guy out. But I think I kind of understand the Colts' thought process there, and they don't want Richardson to go out, play too early, and then get hurt again and not be able to play for several weeks. Plus, they felt that this opponent, Tennessee, while the Colts defense definitely had its moments in this game, both good and bad, they knew they weren't facing an overwhelming offense from the Titans. Will Levis was limited with a shoulder injury. He suffered. They're coming off a bye week, but, especially early in the game, they did not do much as far as trying to throw the ball downfield or get that ball downfield. And I don't know if that was a limitation from a physical standpoint of Levis or if that was imposed by the coaching staff, because Will Levis this season, if you've seen the highlights of him from time to time, he has had a propensity to just kind of carelessly throw the ball away and have weird turnovers. And so they might have gone in with game plan this week to try to limit some of those throws in order to prevent him from making some of those head-scratching decisions that have led to Tennessee just not being able to take care of the ball, essentially. And especially early in the game, it seemed like there was a lot of side-to-side throws, a lot of sort of lateral throws that were to guys, wide receiver screens, that sort of thing. And it seemed conservative, but then it also paid off for the Titans because they ended up getting a touchdown out of that tied the game up early in the game because they kind of ran a play that looked like it was going to be one of those little kind of swing passes to the side, but instead there was some confusion between some defenders, and that allowed the guy to get around because they did not actually run that screen or throw that ball to the side. So it's hard to say one way or another which one was which as far as Will Levis is concerned, but, really, I mean, this defense, we've seen it. If you've watched any of the games this season, it has been really frustrating at times because when it's a third down or a third and long in a key situation, the Colts just cannot seem to get a stop. They couldn't do it against Green Bay in a game that they were really never in and still had a chance. It was a one-score game. They couldn't do it against the Texans in Week 1. They needed just one stop, to get back into that game. And then even against Jacksonville, as wacky as that game got in the fourth quarter, and yes, the defense made a couple of stops to keep them in the game, but when the chips were down and they needed that one stop to keep Jacksonville from getting into field goal territory, they just could not do it. And this week, the Colts were able to step up and get those key stops and key situations in the fourth quarter, and that was really the big difference in the game here because this one, another one-score game, another tightly contested one. The Colts come out on top 20-17. All right, talked about Michael Pittman Jr. a little bit. There were some reports and also confirmed by our very own Mike Chappell that, Pittman has a back issue. It's something that's been lingering for a bit, and there is still some consideration or there was some consideration of putting him on injured reserve, and Pittman actually didn't rule that out when reporters talked to him after the game. But instead, he suited up. So we had a couple pregame surprises in this one, and I think we all expected that Michael Pittman Jr. would not play in this game and that Anthony Richardson would play in this game. Ended up being completely the opposite of that. The team decided to hold out Richardson, make him the emergency quarterback this week, and then had Pittman in the lineup, and he played a significant amount of snaps this week. The numbers may not impress you. He had just 3 catches for, I think it was 35 yards for Pittman. Yeah, 3 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets this week for Pitt. But 2 of those catches were absolutely massive and won the game for the Colts. One of them came with about 7:30 left in the game. It was a 3rd and 9 play. Joe Flacco facing a blitz 0 from the defense, which means everybody's coming, and the defensive backs are on an island, and he basically just throws a jump ball up to Pitt and says, go up and go get it. And Pittman went up, and he got it, and that was the game winner for the Colts. So that was a huge catch there, obviously, for the team. And then, his other grab that was really just key for the Colts. They faced a 2nd and 10. They had the ball at the end of the game. They're trying to run some clock, force Tennessee to burn their timeouts. And essentially, if the Colts can pick up a first down, which it was glaringly apparent they were not going to do in the running game, that has just completely disappeared without Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in there. It was glaringly obvious they were going to have to maybe throw. They were going to have to throw to get that first down and keep that clock going and force Tennessee to use their timeouts. So they ran a little bootleg play with Flacco, and he found Pittman, who made another just really tough catch going to the ground, kept hold of it, and it ended up being a 16-yard pass a first down for the Colts. That allowed them to run a few more running plays, made Tennessee burn their timeouts. And then, the Colts punted the ball away with under 20 seconds left. And Rigoberto Sanchez, talk about MVP, winning the game in all three phases. Sanchez had a couple of just incredible punts, but the one at the end of the game, absolute chef's kiss masterclass there that would make anybody, including former Colts punter Pat McAfee, very, very happy. He boomed a 57-yard punt, and it died at the 3. And any hope that the Titans had of trying to get, a ball downfield and get into range in order to get a field goal, pretty much done with that punt. So, again, you have something that we've not seen a lot. The Colts have talked about the last couple of weeks, complementary football. We need the offense to play well. We need the defense to play well. Also, adding to that occasion, special teams. Because they did get a couple field goals this week from Matt Gay. And then they got some really good punts from Rigoberto Sanchez this week. And really, it's hidden yardage. It's not stuff, and they weren't huge yards. But Josh Downs, not necessarily a huge fan of him being back out there for punt returns. But also, I understand why you want him back there for punt returns, because he had a couple of nice punt returns that set the Colts up in better field position than they probably have had in recent weeks. He's so slippery back there, and you understand why they want to have him back there. But boy, going back to special teams, complimentary football, Rigoberto Sanchez, just a phenomenal punt there. 57 yards, killed it inside the 3, and that pretty much ended it for Titans. So there we talked about Pitt. We talked about the offense a little bit. We talked even a little bit about the defense. Let's hear from Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen.
Ryan Kelly's got a calf. I'll start off with that. Gosh, what a great team win. I mean, they're never easy, especially going on the road against a division opponent. Shout out to our defense. Shout out to those guys. They stepped up big time there in the fourth quarter for us, getting those stops. Shout out to our defensive coaches with the plan they had. I think they only had, 239 yards. So great job by the defense. So hell of a team win.
Michael Pittman Jr.
Just showed up. I mean, I said, the toughest guy I've ever been around. And when we needed to play, he made the big-time play there on third down. And then we were in a situation, obviously, where we had to throw the ball there because of the 2-minute warning. And obviously we had to play a little bit there. And to hit him on the little crossing route there on the little naked play, coming up big. And just a credit to him and his toughness. Credit to the offensive coaches. Jim Bob does a hell of a job with those guys every week getting them prepared. I mean, it was just a gritty team win.
How about Josh Downs and just everything he did to give you guys?
Yeah, I mean, he shows up every week too. Obviously, he got the first opening drive touchdown to him on a little double move there. Got a nice matchup there. So he shows up, made those big plays over the middle. Obviously, had some huge punt returns for us too. He's all over the field making plays, so it was awesome.
You obviously had a very fluid quarterback situation. Can you kind of just walk us through the record, kind of what happened to Anthony and going to Joe?
Yeah, we went through the week with Anthony, seeing how he was feeling, and obviously just wasn't there yet. So we went with Joe today.
Did he work out before the game today?
Yeah. I mean, we had him as emergency third if he had to play in an emergency situation.
Did you make that call before the game today, or did you know?
Late in the week. Yeah, late in the week going into the game. Yep.
The corners, especially Sam and Jalen, playing as tough and physical as they did today. I think Ridley had 8 targets and no catches. Just what did you see out of those two guys?
They were all over. They were playing aggressive with tight man coverage in a lot of those situations and made big-time plays. Credit to those guys. They put in the work during the week. Ridley's a hell of a player. We knew that going in. They got some talented weapons over there, and credit to those guys. I mean, shoot, they had a hell of a game. Defense played a hell of a game. It was great.
I know you guys, they had to rerun that last play. Can you consider that almost a walk-off punt by Rigo there?
Oh, that punt was big time. I mean, he couldn't have done it any better. I mean, when I saw the thing land and I saw it just sitting there right down on the 2-3 yard line, he'd been doing it for a long time and placing those balls where he needs to place them, and hell of a punt by him.
Special teams in general, the punting game, both return for you guys and covering it.
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, flipping the field, you need that. Special teams is a huge part of it, and credit to the guys on special teams, all those players that go out there and do that every week, and credit to Mason and Joe for putting those guys in position to go make those plays today.
Shane, what's the residual effect? You talked about Pittman's toughness, but what's the effect on guys around him and they see him putting out that effort in the circumstances?
It's huge. I mean, it goes to those guys. Like this league is a tough physical league, and he shows that. And it's great for guys in the locker room to see that he battles through that stuff, especially young players. You know, a guy that's going through something and playing through it. Credit to him, man. I'll tell you what, he's just a warrior.
Can you explain the touchdown? It really just, I guess, Joe's faith to put it in a spot where they can just make a play.
Yeah, they were in a blitz zero look there. We had a max protection on, and it was a one-on-one. Give him a chance, and he went up and made a big time play in that situation.
The red zone is that, you had that when you get inside 5. Is that one of those things where, like, when Anthony's back, it opens up a lot more you can do there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quarterback run game would help with that stuff, but obviously I got to do a better job down there with that in that situation. Obviously, we had to settle for 3 there in that situation.
What did you see in the O-line just in terms of pass protection today?
I thought they did a nice job. Dalton Tucker stepping in. I thought he did a good job. And then when Bordellini had to, come in for Ryan, obviously he's been playing good ball, so he stepped up as well. And again, shout out to those guys. Shout out to Tony for getting those guys prepared every week to go be successful.
Is there a challenge with Pittman just where you don't want to maybe put too much on him because he's dealing with this, but also you know what he can do?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that just battles, you know what I mean? I think his whole career he battles, and he's the type of guy that is passionate about the game, and he's going to give it everything he has, and that's how he rolls.
I think about Julian, I know he dropped one earlier, but what was his reaction on the sidelines? He just kind of helped steal the game?
Yeah, it was big, obviously, to get that interception there at the end, going up and getting it, high pointed there. It was huge. It was a good rush by the defensive line, but getting those interceptions at the end to end games was huge.
That was Indianapolis head coach Shane Steichen after the Colts' 20-17 win at Nissan Stadium against the Tennessee Titans. And I want to talk a little bit about that defense. It's been maligned this year. I understand they were not playing a great offensive team, but that hasn't really seemed to matter this year for the Colts. They just give up all kinds of yards, and they did not do that this week. They gave up 241 total yards. They forced a turnover. They were not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, still giving up some of those frustrating early down runs where you probably should have stopped a guy for a yard or 2 gain, and somehow he gets 8. And probably the most egregious play of the game, 3rd and 19. 3rd and 19, the Titans are basically playing it safe, guaranteeing themselves that they're going to get a field goal in this situation. And Tony Pollard takes it 23 yards for a touchdown, and we just have sort of this a bunch of missed tackles and guys taking bad angles on stuff, and it was embarrassing. I mean, I even tweeted, embarrassing. 3rd and 19, guys. 3rd and 19, embarrassing. Because that's just kind of how you felt. You're just like, here we go again. We cannot get stops in key situations. There are not many plays in the playbook for 3rd and 19, and it takes a tremendous individual effort and then also some defensive breakdown in order for the other team to convert. That's exactly what happened on that play there. And, you just were hoping that they would surrender just a field goal, and that would be it. Instead, they give up the big touchdown, 23-yard touchdown by Tony Pollard. But you know what? To their credit, the defense really stepped up at the end of the game. After that touchdown to Pollard, the Titans punted. Let's see. Their next possessions were punt, interception, punt, and then the end of the game, where they tried to lateral the ball and it didn't go anywhere because they had no time left. So, and one of those was a key 3rd and 1. They gave a couple of big runs, set up a 3rd and 1, and then Grover Stewart blew up the play and Latu finished things off. And that's kind of what got the Colts. They got them some momentum, and that led to the touchdown that eventually ended up being the game winner for the Colts. So, that 3rd and 1 stop was huge. Again, without Buckner and without Tyquan Lewis in there, they are having a hard time getting pressure on the quarterback. They've tried to run some blitzes to the credit of Gus Bradley, trying something different, but those linebackers are not getting home. I know that it's pretty tenuous out there in the defensive backfield. It's very easy to say when you're sitting at home watching these things, but one of the skills of Kenny Moore and some of the other defenders on the outside is getting some pressure on well-called blitzes. But I don't think they feel like they can take Julian Blackmon or Nick Cross or Kenny Moore out of the secondary right now and have them going to blitz because they don't know that back end can hold up just in case he doesn't get home. So they end up sending linebackers in blitz situations usually, and they're just not getting there. So they only had a handful of pressures on Levis. He was not sacked this week. He'd come into the game being sacked like 15 times, something along those lines. The one time they did get pressure on him in a key moment, I should say, the one time they got pressure to him in a key moment, Dayo Odengbo came up on him, and Levis kind of backpedaled a little bit, threw up a ball that Julian Blackmon got for an interception. And unfortunately, the Colts on the offensive side just kind of went 3 and out after that. I think probably, again, they won the game, so you're not going to get too salty about stuff because at least they came out on top and did the things they needed to do to win this week, which has not been the case in some of the other games that we've seen. But they had a chance really to chomp a bunch of clock on the Titans this at the end of the game, and they went 3 and out on 2 very brief consecutive drives. One of them, they tried to get a deep shot to Alec Pierce a couple of times, and one of them he was way, way open, and Flacco missed him, and that would have completely closed the door on the game. The lack of running game for the Colts, they're not able to do much with it, and so their play selection was pass, and they were high-risk passes too, for the most part, that didn't necessarily have a high completion percentage, and that just did not allow them to run some clock. Didn't end up getting them at the end of the game, but that's kind of where this offense is when you don't have Jonathan Taylor in there. And you have Trey Sermon running off the left side, getting stuffed as soon as he touches the ball. So, again, not perfect, but, time of possession wasn't one-sided. So the Titans were not able to just run the ball, and hold on to the ball all game like we've seen from some of the teams this season. It was very close 50-50 split on time of possession this week, and the Colts limited the Titans to 3.5 yards per pass and shut the door in some key moments on third down. And honestly, we've not seen either of those things very often this season. I do think, part of it is probably a physical limitation from Levis, who did injure his throwing shoulder a couple of weeks ago. I also think they tried to rein him in this week. I think they thought if they played mistake-free football, that they could probably beat this Colts team that has been mistake-prone at times and also has given up a lot of yards on defense. So can't really blame them for thinking about that. All right, let's take a look at Joe Flacco. Getting the start this week, 22 of 38 for 189 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He had an interception. He was not sacked this week. He could have had a couple of more picks. Now, let's be perfectly honest there. Tennessee got to the ball a couple of times on throws from Flacco. One of them was a batted ball. The other one looked like a real nice play from the cornerback. But in both instances, those turnovers ended up being negated by penalties. And my goodness, did Tennessee have a lot of penalties in this game. It just seemed like, it's not a good football team, and, that's fine. But they had 11 penalties this week for 113 yards. One of them included a 33-yard pass interference on Alec Pierce against Alec Pierce, or on Alec, whatever you want to say. Alec Pierce was trying to catch the ball. The Titans grabbed his hand which did not allow him to catch the ball, and got flagged for it. 33 yards. That was on the game-winning drive for the Colts. So, listen, Alec Pierce didn't have a big game from a receptions standpoint, and, you feel like you look at that box score and you think, oh, well, he had 0 catches and he had 4 targets, but he drew a lot of flags. And one of the misses on him could have been a touchdown, or at least a very, very long completion there at the end of the game. And then you do wonder, it feels like fourth quarter has become Alec Pierce time. Like, that's when they look for him. And why not dial up some stuff a little bit earlier? But, it's all X's and O's and what you think you're going to get. And perhaps they did dial up those things, and they were just well covered, because this was a pretty handsy Tennessee Titans secondary, and that's kind of why the flags came out for them this week. Flacco did have the one interception. He said he got a little bit bold on that. Thought he could, fit it in where there wasn't necessarily space for the ball to go. That ended up getting picked off, and that was a big turning point in the game because at that point the Colts had led 7-0. Their first drive was just this script sheet, just thing of beauty, going right down the field and scoring against the Titans. And then the next time the Colts got the ball, it got intercepted. And, he overshot Michael Pittman Jr., I think it was, in a window that really wasn't there. And that led to an interception, and that led to a touchdown by the Titans, and that kept things close throughout this game. But you know what? For the most part, Flacco did a pretty good job of, not putting the ball in danger too often. Although, again, like I said, they had a couple of those that were pretty close. He repeatedly found Josh Downs, who had 7 catches for 66 yards, including a brilliant TD catch at the beginning of the game on that first drive. But they kept finding Downs in key moments. And while it's not been the most beautiful offense the Colts have ever run, or in the history of football by any stretch of the imagination, having Josh Downs back in the lineup has just made all the difference for this team so far. And then also Flacco, man, sometimes when you look at 3rd and long, you think, well, that's it. That's the end of the drive. Flacco finds guys. He found Drew Ogletree on a 3rd and long one time to keep the drive alive. And then that touchdown to Pitt came on a 3rd and 9, that 10-yard touchdown to Pittman. And Indy was 7 of 15 on 3rd down, and they were 1-on-1 on 4th down. So, a little bit more offensive efficiency when you needed it. I do wish some of those 3rd down conversions had come toward the end of the game so the Colts could have just bled some more clock, made things a little less close. But you know what? Again, 20-17 is the final score. The Colts are 3-3. And you will definitely take the wins when you can get them. Let's hear from Colts quarterback Joe Flacco.
Yeah, listen, I think I've been around long enough. You just got to stay on your toes and prepare. And that's kind of how it was. I didn't want to assume anything or not assume anything. So I kind of, like I said, just went into the building, prepared like I know how to, and kind of, waited until some kind of decision was made.
Can you explain the throw to Michael Pittman Jr., just the faith you had in the crowd?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we talked about maybe having that opportunity at some point in the game, not necessarily on that play, but they played cover 0 there, and I knew I had the corner and the other guy on the right side, and I knew I had him coming across the field. I just had to take a deep drop, so I could buy just enough time to get the ball up, let him get across the field a little bit, get the ball up, and then besides that, it's you got to ask him. I mean, it was a great catch, great going up for it. I mean, it's a 50-50 ball that he wins, so it's huge.
What have you maybe learned about his toughness over the last week?
Dude, I've only been here. What week is this? 6? Week 5, 6, 6. He's got to be one of the toughest players I've played with. I think part of him was probably trying to prove a point. I think there was a report that came out earlier. I saw it on like my ESPN at like Pittman out or whatever it is, and it's awesome. I mean, when you have guys like that, you can go a long way, and that's the kind of guys you need to have to play winning football. And he's unbelievable for that.
Being around him as much as you have, you figured out kind of how's he wired? Like, what gets him to be like this?
I don't know. There's probably a lot of things that go into it. I didn't grow up with him, but I'm sure he's always been like that and been through a lot in his life to kind of, make him like that. I'm sure his parents held him at a high standard so that he, doesn't have that quit in him. So there's probably a lot of things that go into it.
How have you seen that kind of trickle down to some of the younger guys in the receiving corps?
Anytime you have a guy like that, it's like having that figure, that father figure. You don't want to disappoint them, and you want to show up for them, and you don't want to. Part of it is you just don't want to disappoint. So like you have that expectation that like, hey, this guy does it, I need to do it. So it goes such a long way. I don't think you can quantify it. I mean, those guys are playing great, and they all are very resilient, and they keep their heads in the game when things aren't necessarily going completely right. I think that's a huge testament to probably him. Now that you say that.
How valuable was Josh Downs today?
What's that?
How valuable was Josh Downs today?
Was he valuable? He's been huge the last few weeks. I mean, ever since he's come back and been in this lineup, I mean, he's been a force to be reckoned with. I don't exactly know, what he did today in terms of catches and yards. I know we didn't throw for a ton, but I'm sure he had a ton of big plays on third downs.
Last week, a ton of yards, right? You guys lose this week, not as many, but it felt like the clutch play making yourself.
Yeah.
From those guys, what role did that play in this game?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, listen, I think there was definitely times where I was over there on the sideline, like, a little bit frustrated, just feeling like you maybe left a little bit out there, especially even the second to last drive or whatever that was that we, had AP. I mean, if we hit that, I'd probably have 250, not whatever I had, so that is frustrating. But at the same time, playing in Baltimore for all those years, had a lot of tough division games. And I think it really teaches you a lot about how to win football games and, keep your head on right and stay tough in the moments where you need to be tough and come through. And I think we have a bunch of guys like that on our team, so that's why we were able to prevail.
What went into the interception?
Yeah, it was just getting greedy, probably not having that dialogue with myself to just stay patient. And next thing you know, I'm trying to fit a ball in a seam, but that the linebacker's squeezing, the mic was open in that way, and I can't really get it in that seam, so I got to try to get it over him, and that's not possible. And then I'm throwing a pick and setting our team up for failure. So, yeah, just got greedy and a bad decision.
And Dalton makes his first start at right guard against a pretty good defensive line. You just kind of feel that pass protection still hold up with him there?
I think he's done an awesome job. I mean, he's undrafted, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And made the football team. Now he's starting and playing really well. I mean, how impressive is that? He's a rookie. It's unbelievable. So credit to him.
That was Joe Flacco talking about the Colts' win against the Tennessee Titans here in Week 3 at Nissan Stadium. Directing an offense that ran 28 times for 80 yards. That is a meaty 2.9 yards per carry. My goodness, Trey Sermon, 18 carries for 29 yards. It seemed like every time that guy touched the ball, someone already had him around the ankles. Tyler Goodson's numbers were a little bit better, eight carries for 51 yards, but part of that negated by a 33-yard run that he had. But it did seem to me, when taking the two running backs, that when they gave the ball to Goodson, it did feel like they were able to get a little bit of a push and get some positive yardage, where Sermon just had a really tough day. And I know it's not all on him, but just not great. A couple injuries. Key injury for the Colts, we did have Ryan Kelly, who'd been out for a couple of weeks with a neck injury. It's kind of been a chronic neck injury for him. He left the game with a calf injury this week, so we'll keep an eye on that. But that did mean Tanner Bortolini got back in, and Bortolini's done a pretty good job filling in for Kelly, and that's exactly why they drafted him, because they know Kelly's on the back edge of his career, and they're going to need a new center at some point. Maybe it's Bortolini, maybe it's not. Maybe he's a career fill-in guy, but he's done a pretty good job when he's needed to fill in for Kelly these past couple of weeks. So again, that takes the Colts to another win this week. They have won 3 out of 4, which, have they been the most impressive wins? Not necessarily, but, wins are wins. They can try to keep pace a little bit with the division. Their point differential, as pointed out by our Chris Hagan, is 0. They've scored 139 points, and they've given up 139 points so far this season. About as 3-3 of a team as you can be. The Titans fall to 1-4. So the Colts are sitting at 3-3. The Houston Texans 5-1 in the division. It's going to be hard to get back to the top of that division. They're going to need some help with the Texans getting some losses, and they're going to need to help themselves in a couple of weeks when they play at Houston. Next up for the Colts, a home game after a couple of road games for Indy. They will host the Miami Dolphins at Lucas Oil Stadium. That is a 1 p.m. kickoff. And I believe that game is on Fox 59 this week, not a CBS 4 game, as the Colts games typically are often on. Miami is 2-3. They've had a lot of problems with injuries, especially at the quarterback position, and have not been a particularly impressive football team, but they've still got a lot of really nice pieces on offense. And, if you can run the ball on the Colts a little bit, then you can make it a game. So we'll just have to see how that all breaks down. And Dave and Mike will have all of that later this week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. For both of them, this has been a game recap. I'm Matt Adams.